On October 13, 1972, a plane carrying 45 people vanished into the heart of the Andes Mountains. What followed was 72 days of unimaginable hardship, a story that would become known as the Miracle of the Andes. This is the definitive history of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571. The passengers were mostly young men, 2014 members of the Old Christians Club rugby team from Montevideo, Uruguay. They were headed to Santiago, Chile for an exhibition match, accompanied by friends and family. The journey began routinely, with a stopover in Mendoza due to poor mountain weather. On the afternoon of October 13th, the pilot decided to attempt the crossing through the Planchon Pass. But the Andes are unforgiving. Dense clouds and heavy turbulence obscured the pilot's vision. A critical navigational error led the co-pilot to believe they had already passed the mountains. Thinking they were over the green valleys of Chile, the pilot requested permission to descend. They were still in the heart of the peaks. At 14,000 feet, the plane struck a jagged ridge. The impact was catastrophic. The right wing was ripped away, followed quickly by the left. The tail section broke off, and the remaining fuselage plummeted down a glacier at over 200 miles per hour. When the movement finally stopped, the silence was more terrifying than the crash itself. 12 people died instantly. 5 more would succumb to their injuries before the first night was over. The survivors found themselves stranded at 11,500 feet, in a frozen wasteland they would call the Valley of Tears. In the sub-zero temperatures, the fuselage became their only hope for shelter. They worked feverishly to build a wall of suitcases to keep out the freezing mountain winds. Their supplies were pitifully small, EU 2014, a few bars of chocolate, some crackers, and bottles of wine. They rationed everything, hoping for a rescue that they were certain would come within days. Search teams from 3 countries scoured the Andes, but the white fuselage was invisible against the snow. The survivors saw the planes, but the planes never saw them. The hope of rescue began to fade. On the 11th day, they heard the most devastating news of all on their small transistor radio. The search had been officially called off. The world had given them up for dead. With no food left and no hope of rescue, the reality of starvation set in. There was no life on the glacier. They faced a horrific choice, to die of hunger or to do the unthinkable to survive. Medical student Roberto Canessa led the agonizing debate, arguing that they needed protein to live. As devout Catholics, they struggled with the morality, eventually seeing it as a form of Holy Communion. They made a pact. If any of them died, the others had permission to use their bodies for food. The first incision was made with a shard of glass. It was the only way they could stay alive. Life on the glacier became a grim routine of survival and waiting for the weather to turn. They shared warmth, stories, and the burden of their shared secret. Days turned into weeks. On October 29th, the 17th day after the crash, disaster struck again from above. While they slept, a massive avalanche roared down the mountain and buried the fuselage. 8 more people were killed instantly. The survivors were trapped in a tomb of snow. For 3 days, they lived in the cramped, airless space, digging for their lives. When they finally emerged, their number had dwindled to 19. The captain, Marcelo Perez, was gone. The avalanche was a turning point. They realized no one was coming for them. They had to save themselves. Nando Parado, who had lost his mother and sister in the crash, became the driving force for an escape. They spent weeks preparing, sewing a sleeping bag to survive the nights on the mountain. 3 men were chosen for the final expedition: Nando Parado, Roberto Canessa, and Antonio Vicentin. On December 12th, day 61, they began their desperate climb up the mountain to the west. They had no climbing gear, no proper clothing, and their bodies were weakened by starvation. Every step was a battle against gravity and the thinning air at 15,000 feet. After 3 days, they reached the summit, expecting to see the green valleys of Chile. Instead, they saw more mountains, a horizon of endless, jagged peaks as far as the eye could see. Realizing the journey would be longer, Vicentin gave his rations to the others and returned to the fuselage. Parado and Canessa pressed on alone, driven by a singular will to survive. They walked for 10 days, covering over 37 miles of the most rugged terrain on Earth. Their strength was almost gone, but the air was getting warmer and the snow was disappearing. On the 9th day, they reached a river. They saw the first signs of life in over 2 months. Across the water, they saw a Manru 2014A Chilean muleteer named Sergio Catalnu 00E1N. Unable to hear them over the river's roar, Catalnuan threw a rock with a piece of paper and a pencil. Parado wrote the words that would change everything. "I come from a plane that fell in the mountains. I am Uruguayan. We have been walking for 10 days. In the plane, there are still 14 people. Catalnu 00E11 rode for hours to get help, alerting the authorities to the impossible survival. The news flashed across the globe. The boys from Flight 571 were alive. In Uruguay, families who had mourned for months were suddenly filled with a joy beyond words. On December 22nd, Chilean Air Force helicopters took off to find the crash site. Nando Parado sat in the lead helicopter, guiding the pilots back into the heart of the mountains. The survivors on the glacier heard the sound of rotors. They looked up to see their salvation. After 72 days in the Valley of Tears, the ordeal was finally over. 6 survivors were evacuated that first day. The others had to wait one more night for the weather. They were taken to Santiago, where they were greeted as heroes and miracles. But as the details of their survival emerged, the miracle was met with a storm of controversy. On December 28th, the survivors held a press conference to tell the truth about what they had done. They spoke of their pact, their faith, and the extreme necessity that had driven them. The Catholic Church eventually issued a statement absolving them, recognizing their will to live. The act was seen not as a sin, but as a testament to the sacredness of human life. The survivors went on to live full lives. Roberto Canessa became a world-renowned pediatric cardiologist. Nando Parado became a successful businessman and a voice for resilience and courage. Of the 45 people who boarded the flight, only 16 returned home. 29 lives were lost to the crash, the cold, and the avalanche. Today, a memorial stands in the Valley of Tears, marking the spot where so much was lost and gained. The survivors return every year to honor their friends and the mountain that tested them. Their story has been told through books like Alive and countless documentaries. Films like Society of the Snow continue to introduce new generations to their incredible journey. Ultimately, the history of Flight 571 is not a story of death, but of life. It is a story of what happens when the human spirit is pushed to its absolute limit. It is about the power of friendship, faith, and the simple, profound choice to never give up. The 16 survivors of the Andes stand as a living testament to human endurance. Their story remains a light for anyone facing their own impossible mountains. May we never forget the lessons of the Valley of Tears.